Hello again. I think it's fair to say that when the armed forces assumed responsibility for dealing with the thousands of illegal immigrants swarming across the English Channel to this country from the French coast, most of us had the expectation, or at least the hope, that their role would be to deter and, if possible, prevent the crossings being made in small boats, which last year brought over 28,000 people to this country, where of course they're now being accommodated in hotels and former military bases. Of course, the numbers so far this year are dwarfing anything which has gone before. In the first, 4.5 months of this year, over 8,000 people have crossed the Channel, which is about 6 times as many as made the crossing in the same period in 2020. So what are the Border Force and the Army actually doing now? Well, there's good news and bad. The good news is that the Border Force have recently acquired 2 new and larger vessels, and these are being kept very busy. The bad news is that the reason for getting the new ships is that the Border Force simply cannot ferry people to Britain fast enough with the vessels they already have. These 2 new ships, the Hurricane and the Typhoon, are much larger and they're capable of picking up 92 people at a time from international waters and bringing them to this country. Their existing ships can only carry 28 people at one time, you see. An official from the Border Force said that more migrants could now be taken onto their vessels in mid-channel without having to leave anybody behind when they return to port. Now, I'm no expert, of course, but if I were working for a government body charged with preventing people entering the country illegally without passports and avoiding ports and so on, then not leaving those people in international waters would perhaps not be at the very top of my to-do list. These 2 new ships have been acquired from private contractors, their crew transfer vessels. I have no idea at all if somebody involved in the business has a sense of humour, because they're called Hurricane and Typhoon, which were the names of British fighter pilots during the Second World War. You know, the time when our armed forces were dedicated to preventing the country being invaded. Some irony there, don't you think? We can see the Hurricane loaded to the gunwales with illegal immigrants in the thumbnail to this video. I wonder if these people realise what ordinary folk expect them to do about illegal immigrants. I suspect that being civil servants, though, they are a law unto themselves and have little interest in the views of the public. Meanwhile, legal immigration is also rising again. Of the 48,436 new nurses and midwives who started working for the National Health Service last year, 23,000, almost half, are foreigners who trained abroad. Even the mainstream media is starting to sit up and take notice about this. I give a link to an article on the subject in the description to this video. In other words, last year 28,000 illegal immigrants came to Britain and 23,000 immigrants came here legally to work for the NHS. The reason for this is simple. The huge increase in immigration is putting great pressure on the NHS, who do not have enough staff to cope with all the new patients. The solution is to hire more immigrants to look after the other immigrants who need medical treatment. Of course, this then becomes a vicious circle because all those legal immigrants who have come here to work as nurses and midwives will want to bring their families to this country, and they too will need medical care. So we shall have to hire even more foreign nurses to look after them. Is it me or maybe I'm missing something here?